All right, ready to dive into Naval Ravikant?
Let's do it.
Today we're tackling his ideas on wealth and happiness.
Based on a listener request to break down the Almanack of Naval Ravikant.
Yeah, this book, it's like all his thoughts, right? From like the past decade.
Pulled from everywhere, tweets to podcasts.
It's a lot to unpack, but our goal...
Help you grasp his core principles.
And give you some takeaways you can actually use.
Make it practical.
So right off the bat, what's interesting about Ravikant?
He sees both wealth and happiness as like skills.
Skills you can develop.
Not just luck of the draw.
He actually says, quote, making money is not a thing you do. It's a skill you learn.
Big difference from the just work hard message.
Totally.
Yeah.
He even claims he could be like dropped penniless anywhere.
And be wealthy again within a decade.
Because he's got the skill set.
Exactly. It's a bold statement, but it highlights his philosophy.
Understanding over just grinding.
Like, someone working tons of hours might not get rich.
But someone understanding the system could build an empire.
Right.
So that brings us to specific knowledge. Sounds kind of...
like a secret weapon.
Yeah.
Specific knowledge is that unique understanding at the intersection of your skills, passions, experiences.
It's what makes you irreplaceable.
Can't be taught in a classroom.
He used himself as an example, right?
Yeah.
Loving reading and tech.
Leading him to venture capital.
Almost like finding work that feels like play.
That's where specific knowledge shines.
But does this specific knowledge thing apply everywhere?
Good point.
Huh.
What about traditional fields, like medicine?
You still need the basics, for
Yeah.
sure. But even in medicine, you get specialists, right?
Sure.
Maybe that's where it comes in, finding your niche within the field.
So you stand out.
And that kind of ties into leverage, which Ravikant says is huge EE for wealth.
Leverage is like a force multiplier for your judgment.
Amplifying your efforts.
Yeah.
He talks about labor, capital, and then products with no marginal cost of replication.
Sounds complicated, but it's not.
Break it down.
Labor leverage is people working for you. Capital, that's money working for you.
Okay, got it.
But that third one, that's what excites Ravikant.
Because they're permissionless,
Yeah.
right? Like software, music.
You create once, reproduce infinitely.
Software devs, he says, have an army of robots working while they sleep.
Thanks to their code.
So someone who's not a coder, can they still use this?
Absolutely. Think blog posts, online courses, building an audience.
Even this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Sharing knowledge with tons of listeners.
Exactly. It's creating something valuable that keeps working for you.
Not just passive income, but something bigger.
Which ties into getting paid for your judgment, not just your time.
Like CEOs, right? Not paid for hours, but for decisions. So we need that specific knowledge to make good judgments, to use leverage well. It all builds on itself.
It's a cycle.
And then he's big on long-term games with long-term people.
His relationship with Elad Gil is a prime example.
Super strong bond, looking out for each other.
Not transactional, it's deeper.
And Ravikant says, always rounding off in Gil's favor.
Created trust and benefited both of them.
Makes you think, are WE building those relationships?
There's a question. It ties into accountability, which Ravikant values.
He actually says, take business risks under your own name.
Society rewards that with more responsibility, leverage.
Showing commitment builds trust.
Leading to opportunities.
He even says, give me a lever long enough and I'll move the earth.
It's a powerful image.
But he's also clear, no shortcuts.
No get-rich-quick schemes.
Those just make someone else rich off of you.
He's all about sustainability.
So really think about what you're good at, what you enjoy.
And how to leverage that.
It's way more empowering than chasing trends.
Absolutely. And this brings us to judgment.
Which he says is underrated.
It's developed through hard work, experience.
Not just having the experience, but learning from it.
He suggests studying microeconomics, game theory,
Lots of fields.
to build that knowledge base.
He also talks about being too busy to do coffee, keeping a clear calendar.
Not becoming a hermit, but prioritizing high-impact stuff,
And that high aspirational hourly rate
even if it seems unrealistic at first.
to help you focus on what truly matters.
Exactly.
Love it. Being intentional with our time.
And then becoming the best in the world at what you do.
Whoa, everyone can be the best at something.
Well, maybe not absolute mastery for everyone, but the point is,
Striving for excellence,
finding your niche.
where you shine.
Right.
And think about what society wants but doesn't know how to get yet.
Like Steve Jobs and the iPhone.
Seeing a need and fulfilling it.
He's big on the internet for this. He says the internet has massively broadened the possible space of careers. Most people haven't figured this out yet.
It's a giant lever, right, for reaching people, building things,
He's all about entrepreneurship, solving problems.
but also patience, long-term thinking,
He says the worst advice is you're too young.
using age as an excuse.
History's full of young people who did amazing things.
So be bold, take risks, no matter your age.
He even says people who succeed instantly are often the least happy,
Overcoming challenges builds character.
which leads to his section, How to Get Lucky.
I love that. So it's not just about hard work.
He breaks down the types of luck.
There's blind luck, the kind of you can't control,
Then there's luck from hustling, stumbling into things.
and preparing your mind, seeing what others miss.
But the fourth type, that's the powerful one.
Making luck your destiny through character, reputation.
Like a treasure diver who gets a cut because he's the best.
Not just chance, but skill and who he eyes.
Warren Buffett, same thing. His reputation attracts deals.
So building a good name is leverage in itself.
It opens doors.
And it all comes back to integrity, being reliable, delivering.
He even says compounding applies to relationships too, not just money.
So these long-term games, with the right people,
They pay off in ways you can't predict.
it's like planting seeds that grow into something much bigger.
He's all about patience. He even says, if you're counting, you'll run out of patience before success actually arrives.
We need to shift our mindset.
From quick wins to sustainable growth.
And that brings us to, well, happiness.
Which he admits 10 years ago he wasn't great at.
He was focused on all the external stuff.
But now he consistently rates his happiness a 9 out of 10.
Wow. And he says it's because happiness is a choice.
Skill you can learn.
He talks about happiness being a default state.
What's that mean?
Well, he thinks it's there when you remove the feeling that something's missing.
Letting go of that constant wanting more.
So not about achievements, but contentment.
Inner peace.
He describes it as this, like internal quiet.
No more racing thoughts.
Sounds peaceful, but is that even possible with our busy lives?
He thinks so. And it doesn't mean being passive.
It's finding balance between action and that inner stillness.
He uses the analogy of our lives being a firefly blink in a night.
Beautiful image. Reminds us how precious and short life is.
And to make the most of it, not by chasing stuff, but finding happiness.
He even says the mind is just as malleable as the body.
We try to change the world, but forget to work on our own happiness.
So we can reprogram our minds for happiness.
Like training our bodies.
But how do we even start?
Living in the present moment is huge, EE.
He says, memory and identity are burdens from the past, preventing us from living freely in the present.
Clinging to the past stops us from true happiness and now W.
And this ties into how he defines enlightenment.
Which is
He says it's the space between your thoughts.
not some far-off goal, but something accessible right now.
Stillness amidst the chaos.
Exactly. Not mystical, but available to anyone.
So it all comes back to choice. We have more control than we think.
Absolutely. And that connects to acceptance.
Accepting reality, not fighting it.
He says real happiness only comes as a side effect of peace. And peace comes from that acceptance.
Recognizing what we can't change.
He even says we should lower our identity
Not defining ourselves by stuff or status.
and detach from things that bring us down.
Like negativity or too much time with unhappy people.
Right. Focus on things that uplift you.
Meditation, good books, the right people.
Building that positive environment.
He's big on habits for this, for slowly building happiness.
He's clear there are no shortcuts, but there are practices.
And then there's that principle, every desire is a chosen unhappiness.
Sounds counterintuitive.
It does. Why would wanting things make you unhappy?
Because when you attach your happiness to getting something,
You're saying you'll be unhappy without it.
dependence on external stuff,
It's like wanting is suffering.
he uses a great phrase. The year I generated the most wealth for myself was actually the year I worked the least hard and cared the least about the future.
Wait, so detaching from outcomes leads to success. How?
He says doing things for their own sake, following his passion.
That's when he did his best work.
Like when we release pressure, we get more creative.
Finding flow.
He links this to work that feels like play.
Aligning actions with our inner motivations.
He even says the meaning of life is to do things for their own sake.
So not ignoring rewards, but
Yeah. Finding that sweet spot where passion meets the world's needs.
when you're truly excited, you create value naturally.
He says most of life is a search for who and what needs you the most.
Finding your unique contribution.
Your specific knowledge.
He says, no one can compete with you on being you.
Embrace your uniqueness.
Don't fit in. Stand out.
He also says, follow your intellectual curiosity more than whatever is hot right now.
Not just any interest, but where your curiosity meets future needs.
Become the expert there.
He even challenges us to think about who we truly admire.
Not just for achievements, but for their character.
He quotes Blaise Pascal, all of man's troubles arise because he cannot sit in a room quietly by himself.
Inner peace.
Ravikant says, if you're content within, that's true success.
But that's tough in our world.
It is. So focused on external stuff.
He says we're conditioned to think peace comes from solving external problems.
But there's always another problem.
So find peace within, regardless of what's happening outside.
Shift from fixing to cultivating peace.
And when we're peaceful, we're better at solving problems anyway.
He even says, you're meant to do something. You're not just meant to lie there in the sand and meditate all day long. You should self-actualize. You should do what you are meant to do.
Balance, action, and peace.
He wants to see everyone wealthy, healthy, happy.
It's a great vision.
But we need some big shifts in how we see things.
Starting with shedding our identities.
To see reality clearly.
He says our egos cloud our perception.
We see everything through that lens.
There's a Buddhist saying, tension is who you think you should be. Relaxation is who you are.
Letting go of those rigid ideas about ourselves.
To find freedom and peace.
So shedding those identities helps us see things better.
And make better decisions.
Because when we're attached to our ego,
we make choices based on fear, insecurity.
But let that go, and we're more objective.
He also talks about biases, those mental shortcuts.
Helps sometimes, but can mess us up big time.
Discard memory and identity for the big choices.
A fresh perspective.
And honesty is crucial for all of this.
He quotes Feynman, you should never, ever fool anybody, and you are the easiest person to fool.
Being dishonest hurts us most of all.
Align your thoughts and words. Be congruent.
He says, I never ask if I like it or I don't like it. I think this is what it is or this is what it isn't.
Accept what is, rather than fighting it.
Tough, but worth it.
For peace of mind, good choices, a better life.
And don't forget compound interest.
Not just for money.
It applies to relationships, knowledge, everything that grows.
Iterated games, things where your effort builds over time.
Like his bond with Elad Gil.
Gil's generosity created this cycle of trust and benefit. It shows how powerful long-term relationships can be.
And then there's the idea of focusing on the 1% that truly matters.
In work, relationships, learning. Most effort doesn't pay off big.
Like dating, all those dates that didn't lead to the one.
You learn, but it's not the goal.
Right. He says, find the 1% of your discipline, which will not be wasted, which you'll be able to invest in for the rest of your life and has meaning to you.
Time and energy are limited.
Focus on the high-impact stuff.
Makes you think about your own priorities.
It does. And that brings us to clear thinking.
Essential for good judgment.
He has a lot to say about how to cultivate that.
Learn to make decisions. Build mental models.
Become a lifelong learner.
He says, clear thinkers appeal to their own authority.
Develop your own inner compass.
Not relying on others' opinions.
Exactly. It's about building your own judgment.
And letting go of those old stories about ourselves.
Those can lead to bad choices.
He talks about the monkey mind, that emotional reactive part.
Clouding our judgment.
So how do we quiet that monkey mind?
Meditation.
He calls it intermittent fasting for the mind.
Breaking free from the constant chatter.
To experience the present moment.
He even says it pops us out of the story we're constantly telling ourselves.
Wow. To see those stories more objectively.
And it all connects to shedding those identities.
Meditation helps us detach from thoughts, emotions.
To see we are not our thoughts.
He also reminds us that we're pretty high up on Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Life is good. Be grateful.
Are we too much in our heads? Missing out on the NW.
Spend more time in your body. Reconnect with your senses.
Like a kid again. He's not saying be passive, though.
Right. It's about finding that balance.
Paying attention to our thoughts, emotions, reactions.
To understand our own patterns.
We have the power to shape our own minds.
Create the reality we want.
And it comes back to choosing ourselves, being authentic.
True freedom.
He even suggests that when we're happy, it makes others happy too.
We radiate that energy outward.
Our well-being impacts everyone around us.
Now he gets into something pretty profound.
Our own mortality.
He's not afraid to talk about death.
It's something we avoid, but he embraces it.
He doesn't believe in an afterlife, sees death as a return to.
Non-existence.
Right. back to how it was before we were born.
He uses that image. Your life is a firefly blink in the night.
To show how short it all is.
Makes you think about what really matters.
He says, enjoy yourself. Do something positive. Project some love. Make someone happy. Laugh a little bit. Appreciate the moment. And do your work.
Powerful. Embrace the present. Find joy. Contribute.
And it ties into those long-term games with long-term people.
Building something that lasts.
Our actions have consequences. They shape the world for others.
So living by our values is key.
Honesty, long-term thinking.
Those are his big ones.
Honesty builds trust, integrity.
And thinking long-term helps us make good choices for the future.
He uses his own marriage as an example. His wife chose him.
Because he was living his values.
It's not just talk, it's action.
And values can change as we grow, he says.
His own idea of freedom has shifted.
From freedom for freedom from.
Interesting.
It makes you think about how our priorities evolve.
He also says to be wary of social programming, of expectations.
If you hurt other people because they have expectations of you, that's their problem.
You're not responsible for making others happy.
Setting boundaries, prioritizing ourselves.
He has this great line. If you're not spending your time doing what you want, and you're not earning, and you're not learning, what the heck are you doing?
We should ask ourselves that more often.
Be intentional.
He says to focus on our happiness, not others.
Other people being happy is their problem. It's not your problem.
It's not being selfish. It's about taking care of ourselves first.
Right.
Then he drops this bomb. You have to create your own meaning because there is no inherent meaning. He says, the reality is you've been dead for the history of the universe, 10 billion years or more. You will be dead for the next 70 billion years or so until the heat death of the universe.
Puts things in perspective.
It does. But instead of despair, he finds liberation in it.
He even suggests our purpose is to, reverse entropy.
To create order in the universe.
Interesting idea. Our choices matter.
So living by our values, being kind, compassionate.
We contribute to a better world.
Even small actions have a ripple effect.
He leaves us with a big question then.
What's the relationship between wealth and wisdom?
A lot of people confuse them.
Money can't buy happiness or peace.
True wisdom is understanding ourselves, the world.
How to live a fulfilling life.
And he says to cultivate both.
True success is more than just stuff.
Exactly. Then he talks about judgment again.
Building mental models.
Frameworks for understanding things.
Study different fields, from economics to psychology.
He even says there is no skill called business. Avoid business magazines and business classes.
Learn the underlying principles directly.
It's about deep understanding, not surface-level advice.
And never stop learning.
He encourages a beginner's mindset.
Be open to new ideas, challenge your beliefs.
And be humble. The more you learn, the more you realize
how much you don't know.
He says beware of those with all the answers.
They're usually the most wrong.
It's about being open to learning from everyone.
Approaching life with curiosity.
He's really big on lifelong learning.
It's key to staying ahead, adapting, making a difference.
He has this interesting thought about disease.
What's that?
He says when everyone is sick, we don't see it as a disease anymore.
Makes you think about what we consider normal, even if it's unhealthy.
Right.
Challenge the norms, find what truly supports your well-being.
And he talks about our heavy minds.
Distracted, anxious.
Spend time alone, undistracted.
Self-examination, journaling, meditation.
To process and reconnect.
He compares it to sugar and a heavy body.
Too much of either weighs you down.
We try to escape our minds by seeking thrills.
Temporary relief.
He says face the discomfort directly.
Through meditation, self-reflection.
To find peace, freedom.
Are we letting our minds control us?
He thinks we should use them as tools.
Take back our agency.
He even has a hack for dealing with annoyances.
Oh, what's that?
He asks, what is the positive of this situation?
Finding a good interpretation.
To shift his perspective, avoid negativity.
Most of it is actually just up to your interpretation.
We choose how we see things.
A positive outlook can change everything.
Our thoughts shape our reality.
And it all comes back to letting go of the past.
Forgive yourself. Release regrets. Focus on the future.
And act on inspiration while it's there. He says, inspiration is perishable.
Don't let those moments fade away.
It all comes back to building good habits.
Our habits determine our destiny.
Easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life.
Discipline. Delayed gratification.
Update your self-image, too.
To motivate change.
Believe in yourself. See your strengths.
He even says, the The smartest and most successful people I know started out as losers.
Overcoming obstacles builds resilience.
Those perceived weaknesses can be strengths.
He loves to challenge our thinking.
Find your passion, pursue it relentlessly.
He says motivation is relative. Find what pulls you in.
Be fully engaged.
Specific knowledge, honed skills.
Keep redefining what you do until this is true.
Always refining, finding your niche.
It all circles back to thinking clearly.
For making good judgments, navigating life. And he offers several insights into how to cultivate this clarity. He encourages us to learn the skills of decision-making, develop mental models that help us understand the world, and become lifelong learners.
He even argues that clear thinkers appeal to their own authority, suggesting that we should develop our own internal compass for decision-making rather than blindly following external opinions or trends. So it's about developing our own judgment, our own sense of what's right, rather than constantly looking to others for validation.
Exactly. And it connects to his emphasis on shedding our identities. He believes that when we're attached to those stories, we're more likely to make decisions that reinforce them, even if they're not in our best interests. He wants us to discard memory and identity when making big decisions and really focus on the problem at hand.
It's about letting go of the need to be right, to control outcomes, and instead embracing a more flexible and adaptable approach to life.
He also points out that the monkey mind will always respond with a regurgitated emotional response to what it thinks the world should be. Those desires can cloud our judgment and lead to poor choices.
So how do we quiet the monkey mind and tap into that clear thinking?
He believes that meditation is a powerful tool for cultivating clarity and peace of mind.
He describes meditation as intermittent fasting for the mind, arguing that it helps us break free from the constant chatter of our internal monologue and experience the present moment more fully.
He believes that meditation is a skill that can be developed with practice and that offers numerous benefits for both our mental and physical well-being. He even shares his own struggles with finding a technique that worked for him.
What type of meditation does he recommend?
He eventually discovered a form called choiceless awareness or non-judgmental awareness, which involves observing our thoughts and emotions without judgment.
So it's about becoming aware of our thoughts and feelings without getting caught up in them.
Exactly. He explains that this practice helps us become more aware of the patterns of our mind and to develop a sense of detachment from our thoughts and emotions.
It's fascinating how he links meditation to the idea of shedding our identities. It seems like both practices are about developing a sense of detachment from our thoughts and emotions, recognizing that we are not our thoughts.
It's about creating space between our thoughts and ourselves, allowing us to observe them without judgment, and to make more conscious choices about how we respond to them. He even had a powerful realization from his practice.
What was that?
He realized that 90% of the thoughts he has are fear-based, while the other 10% are desire-based.
That's a huge insight. It makes you wonder how much of our thinking is driven by fear and desire, rather than by clear, rational thought.
He encourages us to experiment with different forms of meditation to find what works best for us. But he also emphasizes that meditation is most effective when done for its own sake, not as a means to an end.
So it's not about achieving a specific outcome like becoming more relaxed or focused. It's about cultivating a state of presence and awareness in the present moment. It's about the process itself, not the destination.
Exactly. And he connects us to the importance of lifelong learning. He's a huge advocate for reading and believes that we live in the age of Alexandria, where every book and piece of knowledge ever written down is readily available to us.
But he cautions that the desire to learn is often scarce. It's like we have access to all this incredible information, but we're often too busy or distracted to really engage with it.
He encourages us to cultivate a genuine love for reading and to approach it not as a chore, but as an adventure. And he has a unique approach to reading himself.
Oh, what's his secret?
He treats books like blog posts or tweets. He doesn't feel obligated to finish every book he starts. He skims, jumps around, and focuses on extracting the key insights and concepts that resonate with him.
He even says the number of books completed is a vanity metric, suggesting that it's more important to focus on absorbing new concepts and expanding our understanding than simply checking books off a list.
He highlights the importance of reading widely, including materials that we might not agree with or that challenge our existing beliefs.
He believes that exposure to diverse perspectives is essential for developing critical thinking skills and expanding our understanding of the world.
He admits that he skips mentioning 2/3 of the books he reads because they might seem embarrassing or trivial to others.
That's refreshing. It reminds us that our intellectual curiosity should be guided by our own interests and passions, not by the need for external validation.
Exactly. And he emphasizes the importance of building a strong foundation of knowledge by focusing on the basics, especially in areas like mathematics, science, and microeconomics.
He argues that it's better to be really good at arithmetic and geometry than to have a superficial understanding of advanced mathematics.
He encourages us to read original sources and classic texts to gain a deeper understanding of fundamental concepts.
He even suggests that when solving problems, the older the problem, the older the solution. He believes that ancient wisdom often holds timeless truths that are relevant to modern challenges.
He encourages us to be discerning readers, to question what we read, and to extract the most valuable insights for ourselves.
He even shares his own note-taking system, which involves distilling key insights into aphorisms and sharing them on
Twitter, where he welcomes feedback and challenges to his thinking. It's a reminder that learning is an ongoing process of refinement, and we can benefit from engaging in thoughtful dialogue with others.
It's like he's saying, don't just consume information, process it, synthesize it, and share it with the world.
Exactly.
That's a great segue into his concept of saving yourself, where he dives into practical ways to improve our lives.
He's very clear that real change comes from within. He states, doctors won't make you healthy, nutritionists won't make you slim, teachers won't make you smart. And he goes on to list gurus, mentors, and trainers.
It's a powerful reminder that we are responsible for our own well-being. We can't rely on others to do the work for us. He even has this bold statement, advice to my younger self, be exactly who you are. It's like he's saying, don't waste time trying to be someone you're not.
Exactly. He believes that holding back our true selves leads to staying in bad relationships and jobs for years instead of minutes.
We've all probably experienced that in some form, haven't we? Staying in situations that aren't serving us because we're afraid to be ourselves or disappoint others.
He challenges us to choose ourselves, to be authentic to our values, and to create a life that reflects who we truly are. He even uses a Charlie Munger quote to drive this home. To find a worthy mate, be worthy of a worthy mate.
Yeah, it's a great one. It speaks to the importance of self-improvement and becoming the best version of ourselves.
He doesn't just stop at philosophy, though. He gets practical with things like diet and exercise.
When it comes to food, he has this simple principle. The more processed the food, the less one should consume.
It's about focusing on whole, unprocessed foods and avoiding the highly processed foods that are so common in our diets.
It's funny, he jokes that we are all flavor addicts. It makes you think about how our taste buds have become accustomed to the intense flavors of processed food and how that might be impacting our health without us even realizing it.
He's a big believer in the power of daily exercise as well.
He calls his daily morning workout a complete game changer, crediting it with making him feel healthier, younger, and more disciplined in other areas of his life. He even prioritizes his workout above everything else, refusing to start his day until he's completed it.
He takes it so seriously, he said, I don't care if the world is imploding and melting down. It can wait another 30 minutes until I'm done working out.
I love that. It speaks to the importance of making our health a non-negotiable priority. And I know he's also a fan of walking meetings.
He's a huge advocate for it. He points out that walking meetings tend to be shorter, more focused, and more conducive to dialogue.
Plus, you get the added benefits of exercise and fresh air. And it's easier to end a walking meeting. You just walk back.
It's a simple way to break free from the sedentary nature of many modern jobs.
He ties this back to making hard choices in the short term to reap long-term benefits, quoting his trainer who says, easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life.
It's about recognizing that discipline and delayed gratification are key to achieving our goals and living a fulfilling life. And that ties in perfectly with his emphasis on mental strength.
He talks about cold showers as mental training, helping us overcome avoidance and build willpower to face discomfort.
He shares how he initially struggled with cold showers, but discovered most of the suffering came from the anticipation from tiptoeing into the cold water.
That's such a relatable experience. We often build things up in our minds to be much worse than they actually are.
He realized that once he fully immersed himself, the discomfort was manageable. It's a powerful metaphor for life, isn't it? How we often create unnecessary suffering by resisting or avoiding challenges.
It really makes you think about those areas in your own life where you might be tiptoeing around a challenge or avoiding something that could ultimately benefit you.
He encourages us to face our fears head-on, lean into discomfort, and recognize that our minds are often more resilient than we think. And it connects back to his emphasis on meditation. He sees it as a powerful tool for calming the mind, developing self-awareness, and building mental resilience.
He offers a fascinating explanation for why meditation is so effective. He points out that our breath is one of the few places where our autonomic nervous system, which controls involuntary functions, meets our voluntary nervous system.
That's such a key insight. It's like he's suggesting that by focusing on our breath, we can gain access to and influence our autonomic nervous system, which can have profound effects on our physical and mental well-being.
He even says it pops us out of the story we're constantly telling ourselves. What an image. It's like meditation allows us to see the stories we tell ourselves more objectively, helping us detach from those thoughts and emotions.
Exactly. And it connects back to shedding our identities. He believes meditation can help us develop a sense of detachment from our thoughts and emotions, allowing us to observe them without judgment and to recognize that we are not our thoughts.
He also reminds us that we are really far up Maslow's hierarchy of needs and life is pretty good. It's like he's encouraging us to be more grateful for what we have, to shift our focus from what's lacking to what we already have.
He challenges us to consider whether we're living too much in our heads, trapped in our internal monologues, and missing out on the richness of the present moment.
It makes me wonder if we're spending too much time trying to control the future or dwelling on the past and not enough time simply experiencing the present moment.
He encourages us to spend more time in our bodies, reconnect with our senses, and experience the world with a childlike sense of wonder.
What a beautiful way to put it. That reminds me of his idea that you're meant to do something. You're not just meant to lie there in the sand and meditate all day long. You should self-actualize. You should do what you are meant to do. He's not advocating for passivity. It's about finding a balance between action and contemplation.
He believes that by paying attention to our thoughts, emotions, and reactions, we can start understanding the patterns of our minds and make more conscious choices.
It sounds like he's advocating for mindfulness, for developing self-awareness, and for recognizing that we have the power to shape our own minds and create the reality we want to experience.
Absolutely. And he links this back to choosing ourselves, being true to our values and passions.
He believes that true freedom comes from living authentically and aligning our actions with our deepest desires and motivations.
He even suggests that by prioritizing our own happiness, we ultimately make others happy as well. He believes that when we're happy and fulfilled, we naturally radiate that energy outward, inspiring others and creating a positive ripple effect.
It's a reminder that our own well-being is not separate from the well-being of others. By taking care of ourselves, we create a more positive and supportive environment for everyone around us.
So looking back at everything we've discussed today, from building wealth and finding happiness to saving ourselves, what stands out to you as the most impactful or actionable advice from Ravikant's philosophy?
For me, it's this idea of compound interest, but not just with money. It's about relationships, knowledge, the little things we do every day that build up over time. And also his emphasis on choosing ourselves, being authentic.
I love that. It's about long-term thinking, finding those things that truly matter, and building a life that reflects who we really are.
It's been an incredible journey exploring his ideas.
I agree.
And to wrap things up, we want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question from this deep dive into Naval Ravikant's wisdom. If you could apply just one of his principles to your life today, which would it be and why?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the wisdom of Naval Ravikant. We hope you found it as insightful and inspiring as we did. We'd love to hear your thoughts and takeaways from this exploration. Until next time, keep diving deep.